Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to Earnings Call. This week, we're going to take a look at stocks we talked about last week, including KB Home, AutoZone, CarMax, Costco. And then this week, we're going to be looking at Carnival Cruise Lines, Nike, Levi, ConAgra, and Constellation Brands. This is all coming up next. Stay tuned. Here we go. Welcome to our call today. My name is Jeffrey Beamer. I'm the Senior Investment Strategist over at ewotrading.com. Welcome to Earnings Call. We have, even though it's a light period right now, we still have some pretty much headliner names declaring earnings both last week and this week. We're going to jump right into it and start talking about last week's earnings and the headlines. KB Home came in beating estimates, had some beats and some misses, and the stock reacted to it. The stock closed lower. If we take a look at the chart, it had an estimated move of 5%, and that's exactly what it moved. All right. The stock closed lower by 5.35% on the news. And then, as you can see, the stock is actually making a nice recovery, filling the gap that it created with that move. But looking at the overall chart, you can just see a nice big uptrend. Every low is what we call a higher low, and the stock just keeps churning up. So I'm not surprised that even though we gap down, look at this, that gap down, if we zoom in here, that is a higher low, compared to the last one, compared to the previous one. And we just keep churning higher for KB Home. Given where, economy and interest rates, we looked at Lennar last week, KB Home this week, probably not a bad sector to be in right now. So moving forward, then we move to some of the folks that touch the auto sector. AutoZone had same store sales slowed down a little bit. Profit and sales missed expectations. And the stock, which typically moves around 5%, believe it or not, only moves 16 basis points. Now, why that's an amazing move, 16 basis points, meaning less than 1%, is that this is a $3,000 stock, and it barely moved. And now since then, as you can see, it's it traded close where we close around $3,043 or so, and now we're trading up at $31.55. So it has obviously, as you can see on the chart here, rallied a little bit. Actually, come up to this previous high here. Look at this. All this mess back here is resistance. Stock has moved up for that, moved off of that. Now, if you're a bull, this is an interesting place because I would definitely, if I weren't in a position, I would only go bullish if we break that $3,200 level with conviction. If I was in a position, I might hedge right here, put on a collar or something protective, because that area did prove to be resistance up there. Moving forward here, let's take a look at then CarMax. This stock had a headline where they missed by a penny, revenue of $7 billion, beat by $180 million. This caused a bit of volatility in the stock, but nowhere near what it historically moves. If we look at the chart here, you'll see that the stock gapped down on the open and then rallied off those lows to finish higher by about 5% on the day. Okay. If I move this vertical line off there, you can see price a little better. Okay. Boy, it had a volatile day of a move of a little over 9% intraday. But this stock traditionally moves about 13% through earnings. So it's a bit of surprise that not only did it have this intraday volatility, but then immediately reversed, and it is hovering around this $77 level. I wouldn't be surprised if it traded back down to $75, and it just didn't go anywhere, which is very unusual. If we pull in a little bit more data, You can see this big gap back here in April, this big push up in July. Those are the two previous earnings events. And you can see the big moves that are typically associated with this stock. And this time, we just didn't get it. Now, this usually is about a 1 out of 4, 1 out of 6 occurrence where it doesn't move like it normally does. So we'll definitely keep it on our radar for next time and see what happens with CarMax as we move forward. All right. And then finally, we have Costco. Costco, it gapped up. Well, it gapped down on this news of beating by 23 cents, but revenues missed estimates. And this has a estimated move of about 5%. And if we look at the chart, you can see that, boy, it did not want to give up its bullish kind of trend here. The stock only moved lower by 1.75% on the close of the day. Okay. You can see there the wick on this candle, and it did close, it didn't trade lower, but in the end, at the end of the day, all it did was close lower by 1.75%. This is at $800 stock, actually closer to $900 stock. $885.50 is where this stock is currently trading. And you can see today, boy, look at that big wick today. I know the Fed chairman is beginning to speak. I don't see that he's having much of a market reaction, but Costco has had a little bit of volatility here without going anywhere. That's what's amazing. So these are some of the headlines from last week. Everything pretty much moved like they were supposed to, except for CarMax. And now we are into the last day of September. We're at the end of the quarter. We have one of the lightest weeks of earnings before we start moving into Q3 results. But this does not mean we don't have some great names to be taking a look at this week. In fact, Carnival Cruise Line had earnings this morning. And then we have Nike, Levi's, ConAgra, Constellation Brands. Let's take a look at some of these on a chart here. Let's start with Carnival Cruise Lines here. Carnival declared, interestingly enough, before market open on a Monday. And I don't know if that's might be to bury some news or not, but this stock typically has an average move of around 8% through earnings. And take a look at this. The stock is only down 1.7% on its earnings today. So we'll dissect this a little bit more next week, since it falls into this week, because the trading day is not over yet and all the news hasn't been necessarily digested. But typically a move of around 8%, and this stock just has not moved. Okay, down only 1.73%. And then tomorrow we have a couple of names. We have Nike declaring tomorrow after market close on Tuesday. And you can see it's trading a little lower today, but it has a average move over 10%. Usually 11.64% is the average estimated move for this stock. And we anticipate continued volatility, even though this is a pretty good run here. I would have liked to see this little run right here that we've had. I would have liked to see this move like we had at the end of August, where these nice short movements going into an earnings announcement. When we have a big move prior to an earnings announcement, I mean, after all, this stock has gone from $77.5 to $90 in about 2 weeks. Okay. Sometimes that takes the big earnings move out of the equation. So we'll have that question answered for us tomorrow afternoon after market close for Nike. Okay. Big name that everybody pays attention to. And then we have Levi having earnings. They also, believe it or not, Levi tends to be a big mover. This stock, believe it or not, even though it trades at $21 a share, this stock has a typical move of around 15% through earnings. Hard to believe that this stock does this. So this stock has its earnings on Wednesday after market close. And you can see here, again, a nice little run going from 18.5 here where this consolidation, this consolidation was around $19. And now we're trading at almost $22. That's a decent percentage move. But we'll see what happens with the results and what happens with Levi's as they go through their earnings announcement. But an interesting name, a retailer, many retail stores around the U.S., and of course, a very popular name brand company. And then moving forward, we have ConAgra. That also has earnings on Wednesday. Now, ConAgra will have its earnings before market open Wednesday morning. This is what we call more of a quiet stock. It's on our list of moves less than 10%. Not only does it move less than 10%, it typically moves less than 5% through earnings. This means if you're trading this through earnings, and look at the pattern here. I love this little consolidation pattern. We had a big drop and then we recovered through there. So maybe that got it out, the move out of its system. But I really like when we are trading like this, kind of going into earnings. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a bigger pop from ConAgra. I don't know many of these names. By the way, before we get to our last stock here, many of these names can be affected by the strike that's going to happen at midnight tonight from the dock workers. Okay. If that strike lasts a couple of days, not really going to be a big deal. But if it goes on for weeks, that's a problem. Okay. If it goes on for 2 weeks or more, whoa, it'll take a long time to recover. And yes, guess who is going to feel the brunt of it? All of us that buy retail and spend our dollars, and we have products imported that can no longer get here. And anyway, watch that headline. Right now, that strike is to begin tonight at midnight, and we will see how that goes. Let's touch on our last stock that doesn't have any issue with imports necessarily. Constellation Brands, or maybe it does. I think of Stars, but no, Constellation Brands does because it imports a lot of its products and imports and exports a lot of its products. So yes, it will have definite impacts here. This will have earnings on Thursday, before market open on Thursday morning. And typically, as you can see in my notes here, this also has a historical move of under 5% through earnings. Okay, this is one of those companies where they're pretty consistent in their numbers, and it's a hard ship to turn when you're talking about any dramatic changes in their business models. They introduce new products, they take away other products, and it's a big ship. And getting this thing to make a big move through its earnings, some sort of surprise or anything, just hard to happen. But this stock currently trading at 257.75, and again, we're expecting a move less than 5% today, or on Thursday. Okay, so again, Constellation Brands, Thursday before market open, and that's a look at the earnings this week. We only have, let's see, what was my count on those? We only have, I think it was 11 or 12 stocks that I was looking at were on my list for this week. And so it's a short week, but again, like I said, plenty of good names to pick from and to trade through around the earnings event. Okay, so let's get into that's a look at what's coming up here for the week. Let's take a look at what we did last week with our trade of the week. Our summary there was JBL. We did a straddle. That should say straddle. My apologies, instead of a strangle. I made some last second changes, and I to my images, and I missed this one. My apologies. This should say straddle. All right. The straddle cost us about $1,000. All right. and on this. And what we were looking for was a move, a big move on JBL. This stock typically moves greater than 10%. And in this case, the stock gapped higher and traded above 13% early in the morning last week on Thursday, moved up higher, greater than 13%, and closed the day higher by almost 12%. Okay. Now, if I zoom in on this a little bit, you can see that we had a bit of a wick there. So as it gapped, opened higher, and then traded up through the morning, this was an easy call. The minute it starts pulling back, that's when you begin to take in this case, take profits, and that's exactly what we did. If we take a look at the image where we exited just off the highs, and that was a nice profit of $376. And on a return basis, that's a 34% return on risk in just 4 days. Okay. And if you really sat down and digested that, a 34% on your money in just 4 days, boy, nothing delivers that like the options market can. And when you pick the right strategy for the right stock. Okay. So yet another winner here on our earnings call session. So next, who's next on deck here for our next play? Well, the new trade of the week, of course, we got to do Nike. Okay. We have to do Nike. Okay. And this stock, just, everybody knows the name, and they just had a little bit of a CEO change. So we'll see how that change, if that impacts any of the news. I think that news is already baked into the move that you see, that you saw on the chart earlier. But it has an average move of about just under 12%. And right now, options are being priced in at about a 7 to 8% move. That's where the market is pricing in the estimated move. But historically, this thing moves about 11%, and that's the edge that we have in this trade. So this is a straddle on Nike, and we will see where it goes. You can do the straddle, or you can do a very small strangle. By small, I mean like 1 or 2 strikes apart. I was looking at them both. This image here is of the straddle that we did. And so this would be our trade of the week, is a Nike straddle. Or as I said, because this has $1 strikes, you can do the strangle, which is essentially a call and the put at 2 different strikes with the same expiration, compared to the straddle, which is a call and the put done at the same strike with the same expiration. So based upon where pricing is at 88.32 as the last time I took a look at it. I would probably at that price do the strangle, but the straddle works also, and it has sometimes the better break evens on that. So with that said, this is earnings call for this week. Stay tuned. We're on a good run here within our trades of the week. So hopefully Nike will deliver on some good results as we head into the third quarter, and they have a CEO change, and all these other stocks. We'll take a look at how they performed this week. Not much going on, but again, it's the end of the quarter today, moving into October, and then we get into those third quarter numbers. So everyone have a great trading week, and I'll come to you right here again next week. Take care.